Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a first look at a new, upcoming, what is looking to be a reward Tier 10 tank destroyer, Czechoslovakian tank destroyer, the DBV-152. We've got a quick image of it here from What Express of what it's going to be looking like in game. And it's looking a little bit like a Russian hull with a kind of German Czechoslovakian style turret. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a V4 hull, of Object 268 version 4 hull, with a kind of pseudo-German, pseudo-Czechoslovakian turret. So, let's have a first look at those statistics. It's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be taking the designation of a sniper tank destroyer, which is going to be under the similar designations to tanks such as the Guerrilla 15. And its statistics are going to kind of fit that general consensus of tank destroyers that can snipe. So it's going to have 770 Alpha, which is kind of new. I don't believe we currently have a tank in the game that does have 770 Alpha. So it's going to be slightly better than a normal 750, I feel, we see on the top end of Tier 10 tank destroyers. So 770 is going to be good. It's got decent penetration values. 275mm standard, 325mm gold. That's AP as standard, heat as gold. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be incredible. It's not the best penetration for a Tier 10 tank destroyer. But 275 AP is passable, and 325 heat on a sniper tank destroyer is always nice because it doesn't lose its penetration over distance, so we always like heat on sniping tank destroyers. Shell velocity, it's got pretty nice AP shell velocity of 1260, however its heat is lacking, so that is going to be a limiting factor. 880 currently is pretty poor, and I wouldn't be shocked, because do remember this is only in Supertest. We don't see that increased. I imagine we might see that increased to maybe 950, that kind of just less than 1,000 kind of area, because 880 is going to feel really punishing. Reload time, okay, yeah, not great. 20.1 seconds for 770 Alpha isn't going to give this tank the best DPM, and I believe, if my maths is correct, this tank will have 2,200 DPM, which for a Tier 10 tank destroyer is not good. Definitely on the lower end of DPMs, so you definitely are not going to be pumping out the damage, but you do have the gun handling to be able to hit the shots that you do fire. 1.8 seconds aim time is beautiful. That's almost like STRV 103B levels of aim time. However, its dispersion isn't STRV like. 0.34 is passable. That, I believe, is the same dispersion as the Hurry 3, which we will be comparing the tank to in a second, and a very similar dispersion to the Guerrilla 15, so it will be 50-50 reliable at really long range, but kind of mid to long range. The gun will feel pretty reliable, but it will miss some peculiar shots, because 0.34 dispersion is not the best. Gun depression, 7 degrees. That's quite nice, quite a comfy level of gun depression for a sniper tank destroyer. You can work some funky undulations behind bushes. Speed-wise, this tank's actually going to be pretty quick. 50 forwards, 18 in reverse is definitely not going to be slow. And that means you can get away without running a turbo on this tank. So that opens up the ability to run equipment to improve that dispersion, to potentially try and improve some of these tank's other weaknesses. For example, its hit points. 1850 is on the lower end of Tier 10 tank destroyer hit points. That's more like Guerrilla 15, and that tank has no armor, which, as you will see in a second, this tank does have some armor. So this is like 1850 HP kind of falls between TDs with 0 armor and TDs with armor. But yeah, you're probably going to want to be running a hardening on this tank, especially if you're going to be on a map where you're forced to play a bit more brawly. You are going to be trading. Definitely that HP is going to be a valid pick for this tank. But armor-wise, its hull armor is pretty passable. 70 frontally, yeah, everything's penning that. We unfortunately can't look at it as effective armor yet because it's not available on tanks.gg. But 70, looking at this tank's imagery and its angling, may make some funky ricochet angles, but it's highly unlikely, and it's likely that 70 is just going to be overmatched by pretty much everything. However, turret armor of 140 is a little bit better, and as we look at the photo, it is a little bit rounded in aspects. However, it looks like this roof area is going to be overmatched by pretty much everything, and I imagine this turret is effectively going to be similar to the 114 SP2. You'll pull off some fluky bounces, but it's not going to bounce everything, and it really is not to be relied on. But for TDs, it's important we have a look at the concealment. 18.52 stationary is pretty nice. Kind of on the average end, I guess, actually, for stationary concealment for sniper TDs, but it's passable, and you're not going to be a barn, and this tank does look pretty big, but 18.52 is pretty nice. On the move, 11.11 is also pretty nice. However, this tank does only have 390 meters view range, so its view range is going to be lacking, and especially after the update 1.26, there would be an argument to run vents on this tank. Probably a vents improved aiming rammer setup, potentially swapping out those vents for hardening on a more brawly city-based map. However, let's now quickly compare this tank to the Ho-Ri 3. Because I feel this tank is going to kind of be a Czechoslovakian Ho-Ri 3. And you will kind of see what I mean. So, DPM-wise, 2,298, so just less than 2,300 for the DBV, compared to 2,863 for the Ho-Ri. Yeah. Okay. Ho-Ri beats it on DPM pretty considerably. Alpha damage, the DBV is winning there, 770 compared to 700. Dispersion-wise, the Ho-Ri is slightly more accurate, but only marginally, 0.34 compared to 0.33. And if any of you have played the Ho-Ri 3, you know if you run that improved aiming, it just feels really nice. Aim time, however, the DBV is massively winning in that aspect, 1.8 seconds compared to 2.4. Yeah, the DBV is going to be aimed very quickly, but it's just going to suffer from the usual mid 0.3 dispersion curse of it not always being 100% reliable, which can be a little bit frustrating. Mobility-wise, once again, the DBV is definitely winning. 50 forwards compared to 35 for the Ho-Ri. Both have identical reverse speeds, which is pretty standard for TDs at Titan. But 50 is definitely going to allow you to be aggressive and take some more initial aggressive positions than the Ho-Ri can. Gun depression wise, both again identical, -7 each, which is a pretty nice level of gun depression, I feel, for tank destroyers. You can work some small undulations on certain maps, but it doesn't allow you to, work giant ridgelines. So do have to bear that in mind. HP wise, you can see the difference here. The Ho-Ri is considered a TD with some armor, and it does have armor, just not particularly always reliable. It will bounce more than the DBV will, for sure. Hence why the Ho-Ri does get a little bit more armor, so it can play that little bit more aggressive play style. And the DBV does suffer because it's kind of considered more as a sniper TD, so it gets 150 less HP. But as I said again, if you're going to be playing this tank on a closer map when it gets released, definitely want to run hardening just so you can trade a little bit more effectively. View range, DBV is losing out here, 390 compared to 400, but 390 is still workable, it's just not 400, if that makes sense. 400 is comfy, you can get that up to max view range pretty easily, especially if you do use vents. 390 you will struggle to get it up to max view range without using a directive. Penetration wise, the DBV is at a disadvantage here to the Ho-Ri, and in terms of ammo type as well, I feel slightly at a disadvantage to the Ho-Ri. So standard pen for the DBV 275 compared to the Ho-Ri's 305. The Ho-Ri's penetration is one of its party tricks, especially as it's both AP, so overmatch potential. But yeah, AP standard for the DBV 275 will work. It's just going to be not as reliable as the Ho-Ri's 305. So that's kind of going to be the difference there. Gold pen, DBV 325mm heat. That will be nice because it won't lose its penetration over range compared to the Ho-Ri, which will. But 360mm AP is just beautiful for when you're not at range. The amount of stuff that you can pen with 360mm AP compared to 325mm heat is significant. So it is going to be a limiting factor for sure. But as you can see here, the DBV is looking kind of similar to the Ho-Ri. I imagine it's going to play like a Grilla 15, the DBV will, but with the capability to also play like a Ho-Ri. Obviously, the Grilla has no armor and becomes a HE magnet because it literally has 0 armor. The DBV, I feel, can kind of play that pseudo role. It's going to kind of be able to do both. It can be aggressive like the Ho-Ri can, but it can also play as a sniper tank just like the Ho-Ri can, but more similarly to how the Grilla does, I feel. So, if any of you have played tanks like the 114 ShPtk, I feel like the DBV is going to have a similar gameplay style, and it kind of looks pretty similar to it as well, in my opinion. But, if the rumours are true, and obviously these are all rumours, not leaks yet, just rumours, this tank is currently the only tank that hasn't been in the game files for years and years and years at tier 10 that has the reward designation, meaning it's highly likely this tank will be our next assembly shop tank, coming most likely either November time this year, potentially, and possibly more likely more towards February time 2025. So do bear that in mind. Maybe start saving your resources if you are, you know, looking at this tank and going, this is me, this is like my playstyle, this is looking really fun. Definitely start saving your resources, because I have a feeling and a pretty strong inkling that this tank is going to be the next assembly shop reward tank. But yeah, do let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you think we could see this tank as part of something else? Yeah, do let me know your thoughts. And if you did like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!